And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hi there, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan, and this is your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook on this Monday, November 3rd, 2025. We start with the state of the sea ice. The pack ice is growing across the Arctic Ocean and into the Beaufort Sea. We're also seeing the development of early season ice from the Mackenzie River all along the Beaufort Sea coastline, Chukchi Sea coastline, and areas of Kotzebue, and especially in the northeast corner here of Norton Sound, and this will only continue. There also have been some strong gusty winds just offshore along the Beaufort Sea coast, especially off of Prudhoe Bay and Kaktovik. So any areas that do have some open water will continue to see the potential for some heavier freezing spray, especially this Monday night. Could linger into the day on Tuesday, so be aware of that. Otherwise, on the satellite image, as of mid-afternoon, we continue to see a few lingering showers over the Gulf, and along the Gulf Coast it's been rain. You get in the mountains, it's snow. And off to the west, there's another area of low pressure that'll be crossing the Aleutians on Tuesday. This has storm and gale force winds that'll highlight in the marine forecast coming up here. And then there is a strong low in the North Pacific that's going to be coming northward into the Gulf and kind of pulling back to the north and west for the mid and late week period, Wednesday through Friday. But the leading edge, this trough, is going to rotate and brush the southern and outer panhandle with some additional showers and breezy conditions coming up here tomorrow and into Wednesday. So that'll be the next weather maker here for the Gulf Coast area. And then the low that's going to be crossing the Aleutians on Tuesday is actually going to quickly move down into the North Pacific. So looking at the weather map late this Monday night, early Tuesday morning, here's that little trough that's going to brush the southern and outer coast of the panhandle as we go through Tuesday. A lingering trough off the Kenai, still a few lingering showers along the Gulf Coast. We have some pockets of light snow showers in the interior, but areas along the west coast, just a few light snow showers. But here's that low that's actually going to strengthen as it drops southeastward across the Aleutians on the Tuesday. Now, it's not that deep. It actually has a pretty impressive wind field around it, and it's the western Aleutians that will get in on some higher end gale and lower end storm force winds during the day Tuesday. So here comes that next low out of the North Pacific, and you can see that little arm or trough rotate further to the west as we go through Tuesday afternoon. And by the time we get into Wednesday, that low lifts further, 963 millibars, with this occluded front coming north as well. And then this arm, this little trough arm, is actually going to have some pretty good precipitation with it, along with some gusty winds. And as we go in beyond that, that will bring some more interesting weather here Thursday into Friday morning. Kodiak City, Kenai Peninsula could be picking up some measurable snow with that particular system. So winds on Tuesday, north 15 knots, Lynn and Canal and Stevens Passage, waves running a couple of feet. For Dixon entrance around Ketchikan, Metlakatla, we got southeast winds to 20 knots, 4 5-foot waves. For the outer coast, though, winds are going to be easterly 25 to 30 knots off of Prince of Wales Island and out of Cross Sound, waves running 6-7 feet, as high as 10 to 11 feet as you get off of the Prince of Wales Island there in the southern southwestern corner of the Panhandle. Up toward Cape Suckling, Yakutat, east winds 15 to 20 knots, but notice the winds increasing here Wednesday. So we have north winds 25 to 30 knots, Lynn Canal and down through Stevens Passage with waves 5 to 6 feet. Southeast winds to 25 knots here around Ketchikan, Metlakatla, with waves 5 feet or so. The outer coast outside of Cross Sound dropping down to Port Alexander and off of Craig. 30-knot easterly winds with waves building to 14 feet. Up there toward Yakutat and Cape Suckling, northeast winds 15 to 20 knots. And along the northwestern Gulf Coast, winds will be easterly 20 knots within Prince William Sound, waves there 3 feet. Outside of Hinchinbrook entrance to Kayak Island, east winds 15 knots, variable winds 10 knots along the Kenai coast. And then in Cook Inlet, east winds of 15 knots out of Turnagain Arm, coming down through Anchor Point and around Kamishak Bay, west to northwest winds 10 to 15 knots with 3 to 4 foot waves. Winds will be picking up on Wednesday and actually increasing more Wednesday night and the Thursday. So during the daytime Wednesday, look for northeast to north winds 20 knots outside of Hinchinbrook Entrance and along the eastern Kenai coast. 15-knot winds within Prince William Sound and Upper Cook Inlet from the northeast to north. But the strongest winds Wednesday will be out of Kamishak Bay, out through the Barren Islands and Kennedy Entrance. 30-knot northwest winds with waves upwards of 9 feet. Around Kodiak Island Tuesday, variable winds 10 knots Shelikof Strait, north winds on the east side of Kodiak Island at 15 knots, waves 3 to 4 feet. Lighter winds trailing out the Alaska Peninsula, generally variable winds on Tuesday around 10 knots, waves 3 to 6 feet on the Pacific side and 3-4 feet on the Bering side. For Wednesday, as that low, that trough rotates back to the west, it's going to increase the pressure gradient. So we're at Kodiak Island, we'll see northwest winds 25 to 30 knots, waves higher east there of Kodiak Island, upwards of 10-12 feet. Coming down the Alaska Peninsula, 20-knot north wind out of Bristol Bay, and otherwise some sort of northerly component to the wind at 25 knots, trailing out there at the Cold Bay and False Pass, waves 5-6 feet either side. And then looking at this low that's going to be crossing the central eastern Aleutians on Tuesday, ahead of it, 25 to 30-knot winds in the eastern Aleutians, Unalaska to Nikolsky. But once you get back from Atka to Adak, we see gale force winds west to northwest increasing 35 to 45 knots, and Kiska to Shimia having those storm force winds to 50 knots from the northwest, waves building 15 to near 20 feet out that way in the western Aleutians. On Wednesday, north winds for the eastern and central Aleutians at 25 knots. They'll turn northwesterly west of Adak and then back to the southwest, Kiska to Shimia, because there's going to be another front pushing in from the west there Wednesday into Thursday. Along the southwest coast, we have north winds of 10 knots out of Bristol Bay, variable winds of 10 knots within Kuskokwim Bay, southeast winds to 20 knots in the Pribilovs, northeast winds of 15 knots around St. Matthew, waves out that way 7-8 feet. Along the lower Yukon coast, Imanik to Hooper Bay, look for west winds around 10 knots, waves just 2-3 feet, and then southeast winds to 10 knots within this wider expanse of Norton Sound with waves a couple of feet. Winds are going to turn northerly, though, on Wednesday and increase along the coastline, the YK Delta down through Kuskokwim and Bristol Bays. North winds of 20 to 25 knots. Waves will start to build 2 to 4 feet. Look for 15 to 20 knot northeasterly winds from St. Matthew down to St. Paul with waves of 6 to 7 feet, because the low is where I'm standing. Sitting out here toward the western Gulf is going to increase that gradient along the west side of the state. And through the Bering Strait Tuesday, winds northeast to north 15 knots as we come up through the Chukchi Sea. Generally offshore flow around 10 knots. Strongest winds Tuesday will be along the Beaufort Sea coast, especially from Utqiagvik. Prudhoe Bay 25 knots, but as high as 35 knots around Kaktovik with waves 5 to 7 feet. And there still could be some heavier freezing spray in the open water if there is any there off the Beaufort Sea coast. But on Wednesday, those winds will come down. Kaktovik east winds to 25 knots. Otherwise, southeast winds 10 knots, Prudhoe Bay to Utqiagvik. And then as we drop down through the lower Chukchi Sea, winds will be northerly, increasing 15 to 20 knots with 3 to 5 foot waves. And then finally through the Bering Strait, north side of St. Lawrence Island and along the west side of the Seward Peninsula, Wales to Port Clarence. Winds will be northerly on Wednesday at 20 knots with waves 4 to 5 feet.